They thought your silence meant surrender. But here's what they never understood. You didn't go quiet because you were weak. You didn't walk away because you didn't care. You let go, quietly, because you were done begging to be heard. And that silence, that's what destroyed them. Not the loud fights, not the emotional confessions, not the endless explanations you gave, hoping they'd just get it. It was your calm, your absence, your decision to stop chasing and start choosing you. Because the moment you stopped trying to prove your worth to someone emotionally unavailable, you reclaimed every ounce of your power. Let's be real. Avoidant exes don't fear your love. They fear your detachment. They crave control, not connection. They push you away, expecting you to keep pulling back. And when you don't, when you vanish without noise, without drama or breakdowns, that's when it hits them. You were the anchor. You were the one who held everything together. And now, they're adrift, with nothing to fight against, nothing to push away, no chaos to feed their ego, because you finally did what they never expected you to do. You stopped reacting. See, Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You mastered that. You chose peace over performance. You chose dignity over desperation. And that was your revenge. Not pettiness, not games, not another rebound. Just silence and elevation. And here's the twist. It didn't just shake them, it exposed them. Because once you let go, they had no one left to blame for their emotional mess. Suddenly, the mirror was in their hands, and for the first time, they were forced to see the truth. It wasn't that you were too much. It was that they were never enough to handle real intimacy. You see, avoidants survive on power imbalances. They need you uncertain. They need you reaching. But when you stop, when you cut the emotional cord they never thought you'd detach from, they don't celebrate. They spiral. It's not because they lost someone who chased. It's because they lost someone who cared, despite being pushed away. That realization, it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in silence. When they check your profile and see nothing. When they feel the space you used to fill. When the texts don't come. When the energy is gone. And here's what they'll never admit. They're haunted by the way you left. No final blow-up, no meltdown, no storm. Just the stillness that follows a lesson fully learned. Because they don't get to witness the new you now. The one who wakes up with clarity, not confusion. The one who reclaims their mornings, their purpose, their life. This video is for that person, the one who chose healing over chasing. The one who realized that the loudest power is found in the quietest exits. The one who finally understood. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You need commitment to yourself. Stay with me. Because in the next few minutes I'm going to break down exactly why your avoidant ex is struggling now that you've gone silent. Even if they look fine on the surface, even if they're posting fake smiles and new flings, trust me, they're not over it. They're unraveling, quietly, just like you left. By the end of this video, you'll see what your silence triggered inside them, the regrets they hide, the thoughts they avoid, the guilt they suppress. So don't just watch, engage. Subscribe for more clarity-based content. Like, if you've ever had to walk away silently, share this with someone who's still doubting their worth. Join our channel membership to support deeper weekly breakdowns. And type this in the comments right now to plant your flag. My silence speaks louder. Say it not as a whisper, but as a roar in disguise, because the truth is, they thought silence was your weakness. But now, they realize it was your weapon, and it hit them where words never could. All right, let's go deeper. Stay focused, everyone. Key point 1. The power shift happens in silence. You see, when you let go without warning, without explanation, and without that final closure conversation they were expecting, the entire dynamic flips. Because, let's be real, your avoidant ex didn't expect you to go silent. They were probably waiting for one more text, one more attempt, one more emotional breakdown they could use as evidence that you're still hooked. They counted on your need for answers, you know. They relied on your fear of letting go. They fed on the idea that you couldn't walk away. But then, you did. And not with rage, not with desperation. You disappeared calmly. That wasn't just you exiting the relationship. That was the moment you took back the power. Because avoidants thrive in uncertainty. They maintain control by keeping you guessing, by giving you just enough crumbs to keep you hungry, but never enough to feel secure. And when you're no longer chasing those crumbs, they're left with a power vacuum. They're not in control anymore, because the game can't continue if the other player walks off the board. Here's the truth. They were never in love with the real version of you. They were in love with the version of you who tolerated the distance, who tried harder every time they pulled away, who forgave emotional neglect just to keep the peace. But when you stopped playing that role, when you withdrew your energy without warning, they lost the illusion of control, and it terrified them. You see, your silence did something no argument ever could. It created mystery. Now they're the ones questioning everything. Did they find someone better? Why haven't they reached out? Were they stronger than I thought? And here's the real kicker. They're not used to being on that side of the silence. Avoidants are pros at emotional withdrawal, but they don't know what to do when you become the one who's unavailable, because your silence implies strength, and strength, to them, is terrifying. It suggests that you no longer need them, that the emotional power they held is gone, that you've stepped into something they fear the most, indifference. And make no mistake, indifference is louder than anger. So don't be fooled by their calm surface. Behind closed doors, your avoidant ex is scrambling to process why your silence feels heavier than any words you ever said. And deep down, a question starts to form in their mind. What if I pushed away the one person who actually loved me? That's where the regret begins. Not in the breakup, but in the quiet aftermath of your emotional exit. Because they didn't expect you to detach. They thought you'd stay emotionally invested forever. But now, you're the one who's unavailable, and that, more than anything else, has destroyed them. Key point 2. Your disengagement feels like rejection to them, even if they caused it. Here's the part no one tells you about avoidance. They don't fear being alone. They fear being irrelevant to someone who once needed them. Your avoidant ex never prepared for a version of you that stops checking in. You used to watch their stories. You'd like the posts. You might not have texted, but your presence was there. Lingering just enough to reassure them that they still mattered in your world. But then, one day, nothing. No more accidental views, no more likes, no more breadcrumbs leading back to you, and suddenly your absence becomes deafening. Let's make one thing clear. They chose distance. They initiated the disconnect. They may have even ghosted you, but they expected you to chase. just like before. Because to an avoidant, attention equals power. And once you stop giving that attention, it doesn't feel like peace to them. It feels like rejection. Even if they were the one who left, even if they insisted on space, even if they acted like they didn't care. They cared. They just didn't want to show it, because showing it meant being vulnerable. And avoidants would rather lose the love of their life than face their own emotional fears. But when you stop reacting, you awaken a fear they never saw coming, the fear of being forgotten. Your disengagement becomes a mirror. Reflecting back every time they pulled away, every time they gave you cold responses, every time they emotionally starved the relationship until it died. And now? Now they're the one being ignored. Now they're the one scrolling through your feed, wondering why you don't care anymore. It's a cruel irony. The person who ran from connection now craves your attention. But you've already evolved past needing their validation. They didn't expect you to reclaim your power. They didn't expect you to heal in silence. And they definitely didn't expect you to stop orbiting their world. But here's the truth. When you stop feeding their ego, you start feeding your own growth. And that shift, it doesn't just wound their pride. It shatters their illusion of control. Because the avoidant needs to believe they're unforgettable, but your silence proves otherwise. They're now left with the most painful question of all. Did I matter, or was I just a lesson? And deep down, they already know the answer. Key point 3. Your silence triggers their deepest wounds. It's never really about you. You want to know the real reason your avoidant ex is spiraling now that you've gone silent? It's because your quiet exit didn't just leave a void in their life. It activated something buried far deeper, a wound that was never your responsibility to fix. Let's cut through the noise. Most avoidants didn't become emotionally unavailable because of you. They became that way long before you ever entered the picture. See, somewhere in their past, usually childhood, they learned that love wasn't safe, that vulnerability equals danger, that showing emotion meant punishment, abandonment, or being too much for someone they trusted. So, what did they do? They built emotional walls, not to hurt you, but to protect themselves. They became hyper-independent. They learned how to pull away the moment things felt too real, because real feels like risk. But when you came along, open-hearted, patient, willing to try, they weren't ready for that. Your consistency scared them. Your vulnerability challenged everything they believed about intimacy. They thought they could handle losing you. They thought detachment would keep them safe. But your silence, that silence is different. Because this time, you're not punishing them. You're not playing games. You're just gone. Emotionally, energetically, spiritually absent. And that triggers the original wound, the fear of abandonment, the terror of not being chosen, the pain of being emotionally erased without warning, exactly what they did to others to avoid being hurt themselves. That's the karma. That's the mirror. That's the reason your absence is tormenting them more than your presence ever did. Because when someone who loved them deeply goes quiet, it sends the message they fear the most. You're not safe to love. They know they sabotaged something good. They feel it in their chest when they see you glowing without them. They hear it in the silence that used to echo with your voice. And no amount of fake dating or forced distractions can fill the emptiness they created. Here's the stoic truth Marcus Aurelius taught us. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. You stopped arguing. You stopped explaining. You became the version of yourself that no longer needed to justify your worth. And that's what's echoing in their soul now. Because avoidants aren't destroyed by conflict. They're destroyed by clarity, by someone who sees them clearly and still chooses to walk away. And now, the person they thought they could push away without consequence is the one they can't stop thinking about. All because you healed the part of you that needed closure and left them alone with the part of themselves that still doesn't know how to give it. Key point 4. Emotional detachment is the blow they never recover from you. Want to know what really breaks an avoidant ex? Not you begging, not your tears, not even the breakup itself. It's your emotional detachment. The day they realized you stopped caring. Because that's irreversible. Avoidants can handle chaos. They expect drama. They've mastered the cycle of push and pull, the high of rejection and the thrill of return. But detachment, true, clean, unshakable detachment, that scares the hell out of them. Because when you detach emotionally, it tells them one thing. You've healed the part of you that once depended on them. You're no longer checking their updates. You're not trying to make them feel your absence. You are absent in mind, in energy, in heart. And for the first time, they're not just dealing with your silence. They're dealing with your indifference. That's what shatters them, because deep down, they thought they'd always matter to you. That no matter how cold they became, you'd keep that emotional door cracked open, that your love would wait, that you'd still check in, just once more. But now they realize you didn't just let go of them. You let go of the fantasy that they'd one day become someone emotionally capable. You've outgrown the version of you that begged for scraps. You've evolved past the emotional addiction they mistook for loyalty. And that's the death blow. Because nothing haunts a person more than being calmly forgotten by someone who once loved them unconditionally. Your detachment isn't anger, it isn't revenge, it's acceptance. And that's why they'll never get over it. Because acceptance is something they never gave themselves. It's the one thing they can't fake, can't replace, and can't run from. It confronts them with the coldest truth. You can't manipulate someone who's no longer emotionally invested. And when they scroll through your profile and feel nothing reflected back, when they try to reach out and get silence in return, when they drop a breadcrumb and realize you're not biting, it confirms what they feared the most. You didn't need closure. You became it. So don't be surprised if they circle back with confusion disguised as concern. If they reach out with vague messages. If they accidentally like something. It's not because they want to reconnect. It's because they're testing the waters, seeing if they still matter. But here's your power. You no longer need the answer. Because their confusion doesn't live in your heart anymore. Their emotional games are like knocking on a door that doesn't exist. You demolished the house. You moved on. And you didn't leave a forwarding address. So when they spiral, when they feel that crushing weight of your emotional absence, they'll lie to themselves. They'll say it doesn't matter. They'll date someone new. They'll act like they've moved on. But the truth is, they're not mourning you. They're mourning the version of themselves they could have been if they hadn't pushed away the person who actually showed up with love. So if you've ever doubted whether walking away in silence made a difference, it did. You just won't get the satisfaction of hearing them admit it. But know this, they feel it. in the pit of their stomach. Every time they're reminded of your peace. Every time their chaos doesn't reach you anymore. And if this hit deep, drop this secret mantra in the comments right now. My peace punished their chaos. Say it as a declaration. Say it because you know your silence wasn't weakness. It was evolution. And it's the one thing they'll never recover from. Key point 5. They're still watching, but they'll never let you know. Here's the twisted truth about avoidant exes. They'll act like they don't care. They'll walk around like they're unbothered. They'll pretend they've moved on. But behind the scenes, they're watching everything. Not because they love you the way you loved them, but because they've never stopped comparing every new connection to the one person who gave them real emotional intimacy. You. And even though they pulled away first, even though they may have left you hanging in silence, even though they made you feel like you were too much, now they're the ones clinging to crumbs. They lurk. They scroll. They check your stories without liking. They ask mutual friends about you. They remember key dates but won't message. They'll stalk your glow-up but pretend they don't notice. Why? Because avoidants don't confront their regrets. They monitor them. Your silence made you a mystery. Your detachment made you unpredictable. And now they have to keep tabs, because the idea of you living peacefully without them destroys the narrative they created in their head. They thought you were emotionally dependent. They thought you'd fall apart. They thought they had you figured out. But now, you're out of reach. Unbothered, focused, radiating self-respect. And that is the version of you they secretly hoped would never exist. Here's what they'll never say out loud. They're scared. Scared you're doing better. Scared you've upgraded. Scared you finally see them clearly. Scared that your silence isn't just a phase, but a new standard. And when they watch your life unfold without them, it's not just nostalgia, it's envy. Because you're becoming everything they knew you could be. But now, they're not part of the journey. They'll never admit that they still check your page. They'll never tell you that seeing you smile hurts more than the breakup. They'll never confess that your emotional distance keeps them up at night. But make no mistake, your silence is not going unnoticed. In fact, it echoes in every moment they pretend they're fine. Because avoidants never fully let go of the ones who made them feel something real. They just suppress it and silently suffer. So, if you've been wondering, are they still thinking about me? The answer is yes, but not in the way you think. They're not just missing you. They're haunted by the version of you they pushed away. They're haunted by how peaceful your life looks now. And the worst part? They know they can't come back without exposing the one thing they fear most, accountability. So instead, they hide behind silence. They convince themselves you must still care. But every day you stay quiet, every day you don't reach out, that illusion crumbles more and more. Key point 6. The regret hits them, but pride keeps them paralyzed. There's a moment your avoidant ex never saw coming. Not in the breakup, not in the silence, not even in the aftermath. It's the moment they realize, I messed up and I can't undo it. But here's the cruel twist of being avoidant. They feel the regret, deeply, heavily, relentlessly. But they'll do anything to avoid showing it. Because to reach out, to apologize, to admit they were wrong, would mean confronting the one thing they fear most: vulnerability. And let's be real, Avoidants don't do that. They'd rather swallow the pain, distract themselves with someone new, or double down on indifference, just so they don't have to admit they lost the best thing they ever had. You see, regret doesn't hit them right away. Not during the no contact, not when you first let go. It hits them later, when they scroll through your feed and see you glowing, when they meet new people who don't match your depth, when the silence stops feeling like peace and starts sounding like a punishment. They realize they had real love, and they rejected it. They realized they were cold to someone who was warm. They realized they were emotionally unavailable to someone who showed up fully. And that realization, it wrecks them. But pride, that's the wall they can't break. Because reaching out means they have to acknowledge they were the problem, admit they had a good thing and let it go, face the consequences of their emotional cowardice, and to an avoidant, that feels like death. So instead they'll pretend they don't miss you, watch from afar, post fake happiness, say, "It just didn't work out," as if they didn't sabotage it. They'll never say, "I pushed you away because I was scared. I couldn't give you love because I never learned how to receive it. I miss you more than I know how to express." No. They'll say nothing. Or worse, they'll say too little, too late. And deep down, they hate themselves for it. But pride? Pride is the armor they wear because they've never felt safe naked in front of love. Pride is what keeps them stuck. And regret is what eats them alive in silence. You became the one that got away, not because you disappeared, but because they couldn't grow fast enough to meet you where you were. So when you ask yourself, do they regret it? Yes, more than you'll ever know. But will they tell you? Never. Because your avoidant ex would rather lose you forever than risk facing the truth they've buried for a lifetime. And that's why your silence destroys them. Because they know the door was open. They just never had the courage to walk through it. Key point 7. You let go for you, not to hurt them. Let's be crystal clear. You didn't walk away to teach them a lesson. You didn't go silent to make them suffer. You didn't detach hoping they'd chase. You let go. Because holding on was costing you everything. Your peace, your dignity, your sense of self. And that's the part your avoidant ex will never truly understand. They think your silence is a tactic. They think you're playing games. They think they'll be back once they cool off. But what they don't get is this. You didn't go quiet to manipulate them. You went quiet to reclaim yourself. Because loving them started to feel like abandoning you. And that's a trade you were no longer willing to make. At some point, you looked around and realized you were the one always initiating. You were the one bending. You were the one shrinking yourself just to keep the connection alive. And the more you did that, the more you lost touch with your own reflection. So no, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about getting back at them. This is about you choosing healing over history. You finally reached a point where staying hurt more than leaving. Where explaining yourself became exhausting. Where waiting on breadcrumbs felt like spiritual starvation. And walking away, it was the first honest thing you'd done for yourself in a long time. Because here's the truth. You were never too much. They were just too afraid. Afraid to receive love. Afraid to be seen. Afraid to actually show up in a relationship built on depth, not drama. And while they were busy avoiding intimacy, you were offering your heart, fully, beautifully, recklessly, until one day you stopped. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. That's what true detachment is. It's not, I don't care. It's, I care enough about myself to stop chasing people who can't meet me there. And if they're suffering now, if your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did, that's not your burden to carry. That's the cost of their avoidance. That's the price of their emotional cowardice. You didn't leave to punish them. You left to free yourself. And whether or not they ever understand that is no longer your concern. You've outgrown the version of you that needed them to get it. You've stepped into a chapter where closure comes from within. So let go. Fully, boldly, quietly. And trust this. The right people won't be scared by your depth. They'll drown in it willingly. Your silence wasn't the end. It was your beginning. If this message hit home, take a second right now and subscribe to the channel. Click like if you've ever had to love someone from a distance. Share this with someone still blaming themselves for someone else's emotional immaturity. And if you want to go deeper, join our channel membership. You'll get early access to exclusive breakdowns and community support. But before you go, comment this below to lock in your growth. I let go to find me, because you didn't go quiet to cause pain. You went quiet to end yours. And that's the most powerful thing you've ever done. So the next time you wonder if your silence meant anything, just remember, you didn't break them by yelling. You broke them by finally choosing yourself. They thought you'd beg. They thought you'd wait. They thought they'd always have access to the version of you that never gave up. But your silence proved something far more powerful than words ever could. You don't chase what doesn't choose you. And now? They're stuck in the same emotional cage they tried to trap you in. While you're out here breathing air they'll never taste again. This isn't about blame. It's about breaking free, and trust me, you're not behind. You're ahead. Ahead of the healing. Ahead of the awakening. Ahead of every version of yourself that ever begged for crumbs. If this video gave you strength, show love back. Hit like to support the message. Subscribe so you never miss a truth bomb like this. Share this video with someone who's still stuck in that avoidant cycle, and join our channel membership to help us keep making videos that set people free. Drop this in the comments to seal your growth. My silence set me free. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Because while they were busy playing power games, they didn't realize they handed you the one thing you never had before: freedom. Coming up next, your avoidant ex wanted power, but gave you freedom instead. This one's personal. It'll hit like a bullet of truth right between the lies they told you and the strength you've been building since. So turn on notifications, because this healing, it's just getting started. Stay silent, stay strong, stay dangerous. See you in the next one.